houses are just built right on top of each other, built right next to the street. All these trees eventually died because of the new sidewalk there. They were all gone. Well, this was a plan unit for 16 new houses. Now, I'm dividing 52 in two to make those units, instead of 52, let's make 36. Well, that's more than 16, isn't it? Wow. And it probably would have cost them a lot less money. I think it was $4 million, or I don't know how much money they spent.
There's like, if you read some of Clarence Stein's original writings, there's all sorts of studies on how to get the maximum density and the maximum open space. They knew what they were doing, and then these idiots.
I'll show you pictures. It's coming. But what was really cool about this, sorry, Dave's not here today, but what was really cool, 16 houses. This was an area for the garages. This was Greenhills' first alley. First alley.
What's the name of that alley?
Okay. Wait a minute. And the name of the alley is called
Dave's Way?
Dave's Way. True story.
Dave's Way.
Who's Dave?
Who's Dave?
Who is Dave?
We don't.
They need the mayor. They need the mayor.
Well, here's a brochure on the marketing plan for DeWitt, and I really love this because they basically say, let's see if I can read it. It's another first for Greenhills. Well, yeah, it was an experiment, but it was an experiment that failed. And I really like, God, I can't read anymore. I really like this part down here where it says, Greenhills has retained its close to the original plan with the building of Potter Hill.
Yeah, right.
So anyway, that's the way, it's amazing what you can do with marketing. Well, to the left is our DeWitt Landing. I think they built 19 homes in here, but these are homes that did exist, and this was DeWitt. Notice the spacing, the green space around here. Well, guess what? The village decided they were going to do another plan over on Cromwell, and I call this Menelaus's Ghetto because that's exact 39 houses, 39 in this wonderful space. Well, the really good news here is, if your neighbor needed a cup of sugar, he wouldn't be very far away. But that's why I relate to this. This is basically what the plan was all about. It basically was in the architectural design of the individual homes, and it was basically the town planner believed the plan should grow out of the natural topography of the area. The most rugged area were designed to be forested, while the roads followed a natural terrain, and the planners provided open space for parks, playgrounds, and allotment gardens. So there were basically going to be 25,000 people on a 5,930 acre tract. There were going to be like 5 or 6 Green Hill towns in this tract of land. Greenhills was just the first of many, or was supposed to be.
You mean right here in Cincinnati?
No, this was Forest Park. The area it was 6,000 acres. They were going to build 4 or 5 more towns that looked like Greenhills going further north.
So right in this, oh wow.
Yeah.
Did they have that same kind of plan for Greenbelt and Greendale? Or was this?
I'm not sure whether they acquired as much acreage because they were more, I think Greenbelt was more landlocked.
Oh, wow.
So the original 5,000, almost 6,000 acres, 2,045 acres are now Winton Woods. So Greenhills is approximately 530 acres, and 3,400 acres were sold to Warner Camper, which developed Forest Park. And Greenhills is the only one of the 3 towns that still retains its Greenbelt, although Greenhills is the only one of the 3 towns that has torn down their original houses. And I think this photograph is just, it tells what Greenhills is all about. The Greenhills space and the young child sitting in the empty space.
I think that's Palmer Park and that's the back of my building.
Well, I'm going to read this off to you because this is what Justin Hartsock thought about the planning of Greenhills. If Greenhills should ever be held up to the public as an exemplar, it should be based on its efforts and accomplishments to secure balance in all community facilities and requirements, and to preserve always a close relationship between urban life and open space environment. If these features are lost, this community may enjoy no more distinction than being a nice town. pretty much says it all. Thanks, guys. Now we got questions. Any questions?
Kleenex, I'm crying.
Well, thank you for this.
I got a comment. A friend of mine who grew up in Walnut Hills explained to me when I moved to Greenhills that her father had had a trucking business, which he lost in the Depression. So when they started building Greenhills, he was able to get employment to use his truck or trucks, like the dirt and to haul things. And she said that it, now this is her view from being whatever age she was, a young person, that there was a lot of negativity in the Cincinnati area about the community because it was going to be a slum.
Yeah, that was the misconception of what it was to be.
But anyway, so she said that a lot of, like, their acquaintances and their family members and friends were upset that her father was helping build this slum. They were making him very mercenary. And I like to say, to go along with that story, I do not know how my husband came to the Greenhills barber shop, because we completely foreign to Greenhills and even Cincinnati, and didn't even know Greenhills existed. So I've never known how he got out here. But he was so fascinated. So when we bought our home on Beckford, in the barber shop, when he said that he was planning on moving over on Beckford, they said, "You don't want to go over on the west side. That's going to be a slum." So I have said in 1938 or whatever it was, they were building a slum, and when we came in '69, it was developing into a slum.
Still.
So I have said that I moved into the original part of the slums. Now I think, be it true, where I live was World War II Victory Garden.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes, yes.
And we weren't very well received down there because that was a big play area.
Oh, yeah, when you mean Beckford? Yeah.
Yes.
I used to play down there.
Are you
Actually,
resentful?
we used to jump, when they built those houses, we would jump, then they dumped the gravel in the basement where the stairs would go. And so there'd be a pile of gravel before, we would jump through the hole and into the gravel pile, because it was like cushion your fall.
Well, anyway, I always, so it, just to put that in, that it did provide work, even for people who didn't live out here.
It provided a lot of work for people. People would walk, actually, from Mount Healthy to here to the employment site. They would walk there. That would be their day.
Well, there's articles about Mount Healthy really fought. A lot of people did not want Greenhills.
Well, see, that's
Yeah.
what she
But-
said.
But
What people refer to as the barracks, which I don't, because you can see the architect. The architecture was just so different.
Yeah.
And I get tired of people calling them the barracks because it's international style.
Right.
Well, they don't know what a barracks is, a true
A
barrack
true
is.
barracks. But, you know, the architecture, you look at the community building and you see that's in 1938. That was an unusual piece of architecture for 1938.
Yeah.
And it was kind of weird, and people thought, what is this stuff, you know? They were used to the turn of the century, the Victorian stuff, so it was, you know, I don't know where they decided, but it was not a slum. Everybody I talked to said it was utopia. It
It
was the
supposed to
greatest
be
place in
affordable
the
housing.
Yeah,
for
it was the greatest
middle
place.
class
They were
people.
coming from the slums downtown, which were slums.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
if you,
anyway, even today, visitors who are totally unfamiliar find this place fascinating.
Charming, charming. It's a charming.
it's more
They
highly
come back to-
respected outside
I've
of
had
Cincinnati.
family members
Yeah, it
visit
is.
and come back just to tour the village.
Yeah.
Patrick.
I just, that whole process, the rigorous construction, design, everything,
Yeah.
the people who came in were vetted. I think
Yeah.
even maybe like FBI agents would query your employer, your neighbors and stuff. So there might have been this perception about this slum business, but you couldn't make too much money, you couldn't make too little. You really had to fit a demographic profile to come
Right.
into Greenville.
Well, let's be honest,
I've
if
had a
you,
person tell me they had to move when her father made too much money.
Yep,
Right.
they did.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't want to move, but they had to.
Right.
Yeah, because it was for middle class.
And it was still segregated.
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, that was a forced segregation because Roosevelt was not popular because he wanted an integrated type. He and his wife wanted an integrated society. However, when he got a lot of flack from it, he did segregate people, and he actually made segregated neighborhoods that were quite like Greenhills in the areas of the country.
the west end of Cincinnati.
Yeah, Laurel Homes.
Yeah, that was very
And
similar
there's some other
architecture.
states that have those,
Yeah.
and they are historical.
Now gone.
Some of them aren't though. Some of them have been restored, and some of them are very historical and.
And
I
built
don't-
well.
Yeah.
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 Well, your comment about the slums, if we're all gonna be honest, I mean, if you watch the Roosevelt thing, and I remember my dad, who was a staunch Republican, said when I was a kid that there are lots of people that hated Roosevelt, and I was like, what? But there were, and Cincinnati's like a very Republican city, so
Yeah,
you
it's
can
very
almost
conservative,
think
yeah.
that they would be, if Roosevelt's doing that thing, it must be bad.
Well, there's a lot of letters and papers that are up in the archives in the administration building that show all the anger and the newspaper articles about Greenhills during that time. It's
It was a
just-
socialistic experiment.
yeah.
It was socialistic.
Yeah.
Let's get real.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Cooperative grocery store?
Rexford Tugwell was a social scientist. That's what he was. That's what Rexford Tugwell was. He
And
was a
especially in
social
conservative, to me, it's amazing because you have Greenbelt, which is very, very modern, international. Then you have Greendale, which is kind of Williamsburgy, and I
Yeah.
don't really care for that town. But how do you plan a very modern town in a very conservative Midwest environment? And they did it.
Surrounded with Greenville.
Yeah.
Well, how did-
That's what's so,
Isolate.
yeah, they can't isolate
I
it, but
do.
that's what's so unique about Greenhills is because we've got Winton Woods all the way around and stuff. And it is protected to a certain extent because of the migratory birds that come through here.
Now, tomorrow night, Beth Schallenberger is going to be at our council meeting, and she's doing the study to basically make Greenhills a national landmark, which there are
It
very
should be.
There are very few in Cincinnati. Glendale is one, Marymount, I
Yeah.
think. But it takes a lot to become a national. We're on the national register, but we're not a national landmark. Now, I'm thinking
That may go quick. if
I'm
we
thinking
keep
25
tearing
years
stuff
ahead because I'm a
down.
very progressive person. But I think we should include Winton Woods.
Oh, of course.
And they're doing this up in Chicago now with the Pullman Historic District, which is all
Mhm.
houses, and they're going to make it a national landmark.
Well, you could because it's over 50 years old, so that
Yeah.
would work.
And I think we need to protect it's
Green, yeah, you need to protect the woods.
It's in the
too.
heart of the park because we
Yeah.
don't know what Hamilton County's going to do.
Right.
They may decide people may quit passing tax levies. We're going to develop housing in Winton Woods, and I'm
Right.
sorry, I hate to say
Yeah.
overprotective and the government's running this, but this is a unique and beautiful place.
It sure is.
So, in 25 years when I'm dead and I told you so, well, I
Yeah.
hope you guys.
You're probably preaching to the choir here tonight.
Yeah, I know, pretty much.
Well, tell
Any other
me, how did
questions?
Cantor and Warner get a Forest Park land?
Well, two guesses. What's the more recent history of Marvin Warner?
Jail.
Exactly, he created the savings and loan crisis in the 80s.
I know, but
And he was also the ambassador to Switzerland, so where do you think all that money went?
to the Swiss bank. But I still don't know. I mean, did the government put it up for sale?
Yeah.
Yes,
so, yeah.
yes. Because they
Interest-
wanted them to run themselves. After a
Interestingly
while, it was
though,
an idea.
You're gonna get them up and started and then get them on their feet like a toddler and then, okay, now you
And the
can-
government suggested towns like Greenhills
Yeah.
and Forest Park. But they said, oh, we want to build ranch houses because this guy lived in a ranch house. And everybody, I see things that say Forest Park is a planned community. I'm afraid it lost its plan. because
it's planned like Levittown is what it's planned
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Well, now, it was in a sense. They had like the corners designated for this and that, and
Well, they still have the walkways through Forest Park, which was kinda nice, cause when we moved here, we first had a house building in Forest Park, and we were like the third house on the street on Cranford Drive, and we sat on our back stoop and watched them put Cascade and Crenshaw and all those other streets down below us. And I went to school at Beechwood for a couple years, and then we moved to Columbus, and then we came back, and then ended up on Ingram. But it was kind of like Greenhills, but not. But they still had the walkways and stuff like that. They didn't have any shopping centers built,
Yeah.
and they didn't have any schools built. But they did put in the swimming pool.
Yeah.
That was the one thing they did, and they did start the Forest Chapel Church. That was one of the first two things that they did put in. But as far as the shopping center and stuff, it took them a little while before they got that little one over there on, what is that, Northland and Waycross, yeah, before they got that one in there.
And probably the
Stuff.
developers used their money because they didn't
Right.
build any schools.
Right.
So
Well-
you're saving money there, so we send them to Green Hill schools.
Well, they started people in Beechwood, and then when Beechwood got too crowded and stuff, they did a split shift. They ended up having kindergarten or first graders go over to Forest Chapel for those years until they
yeah.
got the
I
first
remember that.
elementary school built in Forest Park. And stuff, but I could walk from where I was to Beechwood every day.
You were wondering about why they painted this building white. If you look at it, there was no air conditioning.
No.
Exactly,
So if you
very good,
left the
yes.
brick,
Yes.
and if you notice the windows in the old section,
Yeah.
huge windows.
Oh, yeah.
And then the glass blocks that were in the stairways,
Yep.
Yeah.
you didn't need lights
Insulation.
in there. The gym,
Right.
on a sunny day, you didn't need to turn lights on.
No.
Right.
And then if you notice the blueprints we got of the houses, that blueprint specifies this house goes on a lot where the hillside goes away down from the street,
Yeah.
or this house goes on one where the hill goes up from the street.
Right.
Some of them will say this house needs to face east, or this one needs to face west.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And that was all done ahead of time.
Yes,
Yeah.
that was all done way ahead of time.
Way ahead of time.
So what's
that,
so unusual about it was done in DC and they hadn't even seen the land here yet. You know,
Yeah,
that was the unique thing about
They
it.
did topographical,
Surveys.
they did
Yeah,
studies.
but they looked at 3 different places in Cincinnati
Yep,
in the beginning.
yep.
One was in Delhi, one was Greenhills, and one was in Sycamore Township.
Yeah.
Well, one thing about the windows, because I got a 4-family that we owned on Chalmers since '76, and I live in one. But we eventually replaced the windows, but the design of how the windows were laid out, I had managed apartment complexes before, and it was very rare to have an apartment that you had cross ventilation.
Right.
And so if you were on the end, not only did you have cross ventilation, but you had ventilation to the side. And because the buildings were staggered, the way they were set up, it was just, for
Really
me,
good, yeah.
I was very familiar with that because if these apartment complexes were like cracker boxes where, you know, you had a window on one side and the other, but not.
They weren't efficient.
And the sounds would go right through the walls, where these buildings were built so wonderfully, but the design of the window especially was wonderful because when they tilt it could rain hard as it could be, and the rain would never come in because of the way those windows levered in and out.
They
So-
did air circulation studies too, before there were any houses here. So they didn't only see the weather patterns, the air circulation, the sunrise, sunset on the land, the topography. They really integrated everything together. It was incredible.
What was sad about DeWitt Court, I thought,
Yeah.
was they could have made them into, could have split them in two and made bigger units out of it. What I pictured DeWitt Court being would have made a beautiful play area in the middle of that C shape.
Oh, yeah.
For we've got single mothers now. It's
Yeah.
to sit, look out at your children playing
Right.
in a little courtyard.
Right.
And I think even though I hate DeWitt Landing, it could have been a beautiful area where houses again faced a courtyard, a green space, a play area. But it's just everybody wants to gobble up space and have,
It's the
just
profit margin.
profit margins.
Well, yeah,
Put
for
as
the
many as you
value
can
of
in
those
there.
houses, what the ones across the street don't
Well, I
match
just
either.
read a recent article, and I was thinking about DeWitt over there, that we as a society, a culture, a civilization, or whatever, has got to stop having such large plots of land. We need to live closer together.
Yeah.
That's what
Uh,
he means by urban. You don't necessarily think of Greenhills.
Yeah,
as
so I
urban,
just
but
thought that was a forward-thinking community. I might not like that for myself, but that's what it reminded me of when I read the description of what we are gonna have in the future and what we should look like.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of places now that are building like that.
What's
Where
I'm
they're
And
getting back to the land, they're getting back to these small communities where you can walk to wherever you need to go and.
Oh, that's what you.
Well, even the
Things
village,
like that,
even the
you know.
former village manager who bought one of the Potter Hill houses, she said, I don't even have a space in my backyard for my barbecue grill. And
Uh-huh.
she said that. And there's ways to build, we're a fast moving society, we wanna, we wanna move, we don't wanna have all these yards to mow, but there are ways to design areas that are public spaces that still have, people don't wanna maintain that stuff anymore, but it's all about, and they did it. They designed Greenhills that way back then. And I just, it's like this Menelaus character. I just can't believe 39 houses on that plot of land. Now, maybe that's what people want, but I don't think that's what you want for Greenhills.
Well, that was his order, to make individual housing, but make it dense, and make it in a pleasant design.
Well, it's not, the architecture of DeWitt doesn't even fit with the neighborhood. That's what pisses me off.
And it could have.
It could have. Those houses should be on the beach in North Carolina. They're not indigenous of this area. I mean, they're not exclusively for.
And unfortunately, nobody likes modern architecture. That's our real problem. Everybody wants, the Victorian or the turn of the century.
Well, the Cape Cod style home that we have here in Greenhills is perfectly fine.
They could have built little Cape Cods.
Well,
Yeah, they could have, and they didn't.
My belief is that,
And if I lived
there
on DeWitt,
are-
I'd been real pissed off sitting there looking at that thing.
my
I know
belief-
that it was, $500,000 and my house is only gonna sell for 90, that just.
My belief is that there are people that love modern architecture.
Oh, yeah,
And what has happened is that
but that's not
the
mine.
village themselves have cheated themselves because they have not found the population to market it to.
Yeah.
And there are very many people that would love to come here, and they just don't have a good marketing plan at all.
We had some
At all.
tenants that lived in my townhouse, and he was a doctor, finishing his education at the University of Cincinnati, and they lived here for 3 years. It was Dr. Sioshi and his wife Ann. And they had 2 little children while they were there. Well, about 3 years ago, I see these people standing in my front yard taking a picture with my home in the back, and I'm like, who are these people? What's going on here? They had moved several different places in the country, and they were presently living in California, but they drove to Cincinnati to Greenhills. They wanted to show their children where they were when they were toddlers.
Oh my gosh.
And they were just absolutely flabbergasted that I let them go through my home. And that's, I would say, in the course of owning that building as rentals, I've had former tenants come back decades later because they wanted to take another look at where they lived when they were younger or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know, for them to say that these homes are desirable,
Well, the response that we get from the majority of people that, not the community, the people that are on the Hill, the response that we get is the community is more than just the buildings. And of course it is, of course. But the uniqueness of the buildings and the space that they're in is what allowed that community to flourish. And that's why you come back to your childhood here.
yeah.
Because it's such a beautiful, charming place.
We're preaching to the choir here, folks, aren't we, guys?
Yeah, we sure are.
I want to thank Paul. It was, let's have it.
I just hope I didn't make anybody
That was
mad.
wonderful.
No, you didn't.
No, you didn't. You
Why
walked
not? You
carefully.
gotta